A grilling on Capitol Hill is where we start. Pam Bondi facing a US congressional hearing. Democrats there accusing her of a cover-up. Trump's Attorney General aggressively deflecting when asked questions over the mishandling of the Epstein affair, with survivors of the serial sex offender and one-time friend, it has to be said, of Donald Trump watching in the auditorium. Pam Bondi said there should not be discussion of Epstein, but instead of the stock market upturn. At one time, it was actually Bondi herself who led the calls for the Epstein files to be made public when she was appointed Attorney General in February last year. Well, let's hear from Bondi taking questions.
I find it...
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the
ridiculous.
way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is zero.
You get the sense it was a rather heated exchange, and Bondi accused by many of deflecting from the questions regarding Epstein. Let's bring in Kethevane Gorjestani, our international affairs editor, for more on this. A tense few hours then for Pam Bondi. What were the lawmakers looking for during this hearing, Kethevane?
Well, look, they're still looking for it as we speak because the hearing is still ongoing, so several hours going on. Mostly it was divided between Republicans and Democrats, unsurprisingly. The Republicans barely getting anywhere close to talking about the Epstein files. They preferred focusing on other things, including, for example, the anti-immigration crackdown. But for Democrats, that was largely the point, was to question Pam Bondi about the Department of Justice's handling of the Epstein files, of their release, and more specifically of the redaction or not redaction of certain names. That was really one of the focus. And Jamie Raskin, who's the ranking member, the top Democrat on this committee, he accused her of, quote, siding with the perpetrators and running a massive Epstein cover-up. Why did he do that? Because what was really the focus of the critics of Pam Bondi was the fact that in some cases, the names of victims were not redacted, or identifying information was not redacted. And in other cases, the names of men who possibly committed crimes were redacted when they should not have been redacted. The only Republican who actually went after Pam Bondi on the question of the Epstein file was Tom Massie. He is the Republican co-author of the law that actually forced the DOJ to release those documents. He called it a massive failure of the Department of Justice in complying with the law. And he came with concrete examples for the public and for the audience. One was this email from one of the victims, multiple victims' lawyer, who sent an email to the Department of Justice with a list of the victims who said they didn't want their names to come out in public, asking for those names to be redacted. Not only did the Department of Justice publish that email in its entirety, but they only redacted one name on that list. So his question was, why did you publish it? Why didn't you redact the names if you were going to publish it? The other example that he gave was a document of a legal document of co-conspirators in a child sex trafficking investigation in 2019. The name of Les Wexner was redacted initially, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret. He asked again, why was his name redacted in this specific document when it was published in other documents, when this one referred specifically to co-conspirators? Who is responsible, he asked, for these decisions? How was the process? All of those questions, really, Tom Massie did probably even better than the Democrats, because it had more weight coming from a Republican, coming from that side of the aisle to try to get an answer from Pam Bondi.
And how did Pam Bondi respond?
Well, she never actually quite responded specifically to those questions. Why were those names redacted, not redacted? She never got into the details. Her response to, for example, the latest question by Tom Massey was, well, their names eventually came out when we were notified. He said, yes, but only when we forced your hand were you doing what you were supposed to have done in the beginning. And also, still no explanation as to, was it a mistake? Was it done on purpose? What happened? Who did it? Who is going to be held accountable? And really, she did that throughout the questioning, especially from the Democrats. The same tactic, which was deflect and go on offense. Don't give a direct answer. Don't ever admit that there was any fault from the Department of Justice. And then switch to personal attacks on those Democratic representatives, coming from a list that she had of scripted attacks, personal attacks, pointing to crimes in their district and the fact that they were not doing enough. But never, ever an answer. But I think the really poignant moment and the real symbol of Pam Bondi sort of deflecting and not giving answer was the fact that there were victims and survivors of Epstein who were present in the room, just a few rows behind Pam Bondi. They were there hoping that they would get some answers. Why was my identity revealed? Or things like that. They didn't really get any answers, but most importantly, at some point, one of the Democrats asked Pam Bondi, there were clearly mistakes made there with the release of those victims' identities. Do you apologize to the victims who are standing behind you? Pam Bondi deflected, accused the Democrat of dragging her into the gutter, but never actually managed to say that she was sorry or apologized directly to the victims. She did at other times say that they were working with the victims, that they apologized for what they had been through with Epstein, but never really taking any accountability for what the Department of Justice may have done to hurt them after the fact.
Kethevane Gorjestani, thank you very much indeed for that very comprehensive summary of the ongoing discussion, of course, happening in that congressional committee. Pam Bondi being grilled over, well, among other things, the Epstein affair. Kethevane, as always, thank you very much indeed.